Hey guys, today in science, I want to go back and review what matter is. Because you live in a world of stuff. Not just stuff ordered from Amazon, but you are constantly touching and interacting with things. So even when you wave your hand through the air, you can feel it hitting something, right? And that something is matter. That's the scientific word for stuff. And what I want to do today is look at some of that stuff, some of that matter in your home, and discuss how your brain is just making a best guess as what it looks like. It's not really an accurate model of what the world looks like. It's just a model that's useful for your brain to survive. And so I'd like you to choose some objects from your home, and I'm going to choose some objects from my home and show you how to look on Google Images and use some sites to get an idea of what it would actually look like if your brain had much more powerful eyes or a much more accurate way of seeing the world. So first, we are going to look at graphite. This is pencil lead. It's not actually lead, it's graphite. Graphite's the thing that's in here. And let's go online and look at graphite. And here we are on the internet, on the Googles, and I've searched for graphite electron microscope. I'm going to click on images right here. This is graphite. This is what your pencil lead is made out of. That is amazing. When I rub my pencil across a paper, I'm rubbing off these little knobs and points onto my paper. And I hope it really is a sign of how amazing our brains are that they could create the technology to see this, and how limited our senses and brains are to look at what we make graphite look like in our brain's picture of what graphite looks like, versus an idea of what it really looks like. Although later we'll talk about that even this isn't what it really looks like, because you can zoom in even more. Next, I have a leaf. This is a leaf from celery. And let's go online and see what we can find out about leaves and celery. And here we are on the internet. I have gone to Google and searched for leaf electron microscope. So to show you what that looks like, you'll be brought to this, and I want you to click on images. You can also click on images in this menu here. So our eyes see with photon or light, and these images were taken by a microscope that uses electrons, what electricity is made of. And then this image is created on a computer, not with our eyes. And this computer can see much more accurately and powerfully than our eyes, a much higher magnification. So this right here is a leaf. You can see there's chloroplast, there's a lot of layers, and look at that surface. That's much more complex than our eyes can see, and that's true in real life. Our eyes make a very simplified picture of the world. Here's some other examples. These are likely chloroplasts, which process sunlight and convert its energy for use by the plant. And I really want you to notice how different this is than what our eyes see. And I want you to think of that as a little window into how different reality is than what our bodies and brains are designed to understand. And a lot of that is the purpose of why we do science. Our brains are very limited, but interestingly, our brains do have the power to understand what our brains don't understand. And this electron microscope is a tool we've invented to do that. And last, I have tea. Tea is actually water with leaves soaking in it. This is my tea. And I'm going to focus on the water. Let's go online and see if we can learn about water and what water looks like. Hey guys, here we are, and I have searched water electron microscope. And what I want you to see is, again, click on images. Even something as simple as water is very different than what our eyes see. Now, not all of these things are water. This is a water bear. It's a very small microorganism that does amazing things we're going to learn about later. This is probably either sand or dust or pollen. Actually, two things here that are water are our first image on this first row and our last one. So this is water. These are water droplets. And the first thing I notice on this scanning electron microscope is they're not touching. And that's interesting because water in this state is a liquid. And to our brain makes an estimation that all of those particles are touching each other, next to each other. In real life, they are near each other, but they're not touching. Here's a close-up model of what it would look like. And this is the real thing. H2O. And H2O, there's two hydrogens bonded to an oxygen. You can see your hydrogens right here. And this is what water actually looks like according to an electron microscope. And again, very different from the way we see water with our eyes, the model our brain makes. To think about that more, you have a link in Google Classroom to go to Scale of the Universe. When you get there, you will just click Start, and you may need to enable Flash Player. So it takes a little while to load. Click Start. And you might get a pop-up asking you to enable Flash Player. Go ahead and enable it. You can also click on this lock screen, and there should be something about Flash right up here. Click Allow. And we're going to talk about bigger another time. Right now, let's get smaller and really zoom in. And I want you to really zoom in until you really see what an atom looks like. Because everything in the universe, well, many things in the universe, and most of the things we interact in our homes, are made of atoms. And atoms are very small. There's a virus, there's a light wavelength, there's DNA. We're still getting smaller. There's a water molecule right there. Right? There's some atoms. There's a carbon atom, like my graphite is made of. It's pure carbon. There's a water molecule. A molecule is just a group of atoms stuck together. And that's 10 to the negative 9.6, about 10 to the negative 10ths. So it's a lot smaller than what our brain can see. And this is what things look like in, quote, real life. And it's interesting because when you look at water, you don't see this. And when you look at your pencil, you don't see this. And that's because our brains aren't capable of seeing it. Our brains just make an estimation. They go, oh, I can't push my hand through the carbon atom, right? And to me, our fingers, since they're not sensitive enough, it feels like a smooth surface. But that's not what it's actually like. That's our brain's best guess on what our senses can do. This is what it's really like. And even this right here is not a real accurate model. In real life, these electrons, if you made this carbon atom this size, the electrons would be, I don't know, half a mile away, right? If you were in the center of a big football or soccer stadium and you had this nucleus, these little yellow electrons would be at the edges of the stadium. So most matter is made of empty space. It's made of nothing. But we can't put our hand through the nothing because the parts of it are bonded together. And so our brain makes the best guess and says, oh, I think this is actually a solid. The same thing with a water molecule. Water is mostly empty space. Our brain and senses aren't sensitive enough to feel or notice the empty spaces, and so we think it's a pure substance. It's all water. So the universe is very different than what our brain thinks it's like. And that's an interesting thing to spend your life thinking about. So let's think about it a little right now.